Today we're reviewing the 2021 Jamis Dragon. The Jamis Dragon has been in the line since 1993. It's their flagship steel hardtail. And today we're going to take it out on the trails in Sedona to see what it rides like. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Steve, aka Hardtail Party. I've been mountain biking for 25 years. Most of it on hardtails, though I have owned a fair share of full suspensions as well. I'm 5'6", 180 pounds with short legs and a long torso. And I love hardtails. Welcome to the channel. I started riding bikes seriously when I was 8 years old, and I was racing BMX, and a few years later I started mountain biking, and I love mountain biking. Okay, I'm feeling this bike's weight on the climbs. Not ridiculously heavy, but it's not as zippy as something lighter. That's the price you pay when you go steel. I know a lot of you love steel, but steel is heavier than aluminum. It's heavier than carbon, heavier than titanium, and ironically, it's more expensive than aluminum. So why would anybody choose steel if it's more expensive and heavier? Well, steel has a famed ride quality. We've all heard the phrase steel is real. That came about in the 90s when everyone was switching to aluminum and weight was everything. There were some die-hard steel hardtail lovers that started that phrase so that we would realize steel does have a different ride. These days we've gotten really good at aluminum sometimes, and I don't know if the steel is real mantra holds as true as it used to, but there are some fantastic riding steel frames that don't beach up too much, and this is a good riding frame. It doesn't feel overbuilt. It's not a stiff steel frame, which is really nice. It's obvious Jamis has been doing this for 30 years, making steel hardtails, because that rear end just feels nice. Regarding the handling, I do not think a long offset fork was the right choice for this bike. It's got a nice slack 65-degree head angle, which is great for a trail bike, but it doesn't pair well with this 51mm offset fork. So this has a good spec, even though it's a little heavy. They could have gone lighter with cheaper components, but I applaud them for sticking to some good components on this thing. The Fox Rhythm 34 is a great fork. I love it on this. While these WTB tires feel good and have good traction, they are heavy. Yeah, this bike is not zippy on the uphills, but it does have a great ride feel and good geometry, so that means it's worth upgrading. I know a lot of guys that'll pay $1,300 for a hardtail, and then 6 months later they've dumped another $2,000 into it on upgrades, and that $1,300 hardtail still rides stiff and the geo's awkward. So I always recommend starting with a good frame with good geometry and a great ride feel to match your needs. I really like the ride position of this. It's got a longer reach, which I'm okay with. Most people won't want a reach this long, especially most people my size. And I could have sized down. The small is not crazy small. I'm thinking if you're under 5'4", even the small will be too large for you. But the geometry feels good. The seat angle feels great, nice and modern. The reach is longer than most mediums. So compared to other modern bikes, if you're in between sizes, you might want to size down. And if you're coming from a bike that's 3 to 10 years old, you'll definitely want to size down if you want the same feel as your old one, because bikes have gotten so much longer. I like it, but a lot of people struggle to get used to it. As trails get faster and more purpose-built for mountain biking, the bikes get faster because the trails can handle faster riding now. Yeah, even at slow speeds like this, I'm not digging that longer offset fork. It kind of has that weird feeling like when you tighten a headset too tight and it kind of gets stuck in the steering, or it's kind of wandery and you're fighting it a little. Not quite that bad, but for the rest of the geometry, I think 42 to 44mm offset fork would have done the trick real nicely. But a lot of people love a more traditional feel, and this 51 offset will give you that. It's a real pleasant riding position. I really like it. Stack feels good. I like the bar width. I think this would make a really nice bike backing bike. Compared to the brand new Salsa Timberjack, this bike's heavier, but it's easier to ride, except for that longer offset fork makes steering just a little bit wonky. It's a nice bike though, I like it. It's surprising how versatile this is. If I were bike packing this or doing long days in the saddle, I would size down to a small. I like longer bikes for charging and aggressive riding, and shorter reach bikes for long days in the saddle. I have a lot of traction with these grippy yet heavy tires. Oh, these brakes are terrible. I'm not a fan of these brakes in the slightest. These new budget Shimano brakes are just awful. They don't slow me down like they need to. All right, now this bike's starting to come alive a little. Yeah, it's a real smooth frame. Does not beat you up. A lot of people wonder, is there really that big of a difference between a compliant hardtail and not? To me, it feels about like the difference between running 24 PSI or 29 PSI in your tires. I can notice that immediately. Some people can't. Some people can. That's about how much of a difference it makes to me. Oh, this feels really good though. Man, I wish I had that shorter offset fork. Have a little more confidence and I'd bumble a little less. But since most bikes are coming with that short offset, that's what I'm used to, and this does feel a little more old school and weird. This is a great bike though, I like it. I do not like the KS Lev dropper lever. They just feel really stiff and awkward to actuate to me. So that's another upgrade I'd make. I'd get a wolf tooth lever. This bike takes a little bit more energy to get up to speed. It needs a little more steepness to overcome these grippy and heavy tires. There's plenty of confidence though coming into corners, except for the braking. Nice quiet frame, quiet ride. Yeah, it's just a good hardtail, real solid. And they did a good job on the geometry on kind of keeping it middle of the road. I talked to them and they're like, we're not trying to make an enduro machine. We're not trying to make an XC machine. We're trying to make a modern hardtail that you'd want to ride on most trails. And I think they've done a good job at that. It's nowhere near as snappy and zippy and energetic as the Spot Rocker, but it's not as downhill oriented as something like the Pasila Hamari. It flows good, it wants speed. It definitely wants speed. The wheels feel really good too. I love Stan's Flow wheels. Super planted and very capable. I don't feel nervous except for those awkward steering moments and braking, but the way it tackles chunky terrain, it does really well. Smooth bike, really smooth. I love this fork for the price. Such a good fork. I don't feel like this bike is quite as fast up or down as some of the truly great lightweight zippy trail bikes like the Spot Rocker, but it's also half the price of the Spot Rocker. That said, it likes to move. Here we go. Oh, what a great trail bike. I'm having fun. So I would definitely take this over something stiff like the Commensal Meta HT. It's just a much more enjoyable trail riding experience. Yeah, I think this would be great for bike packing. It's got a real nice feel to it. Great trail geometry. Nice job, Jameis. You nailed the geometry on this thing. I don't know that there's anything I'd change for its intended use on the geometry. I have a bike consultation service for people who are trying to decide which bike to get. And a lot of my clients mainly ride stuff like this. They don't have the steep gnar or the tech or the jumps where they live, and they really enjoy just a good flow trail. And who doesn't? Flow trails are fun, especially on a hardtail. And I think a bike like this would be really fun on those. Yeah, it's a slow climber, but it's a comfortable climber. Got good traction, good body position. Love the seat angle. Love the higher stack. Love the distance to the bars. Just feels good. Man, that steering is wonky. Super twitchy and weird at slow speeds. At high speeds, it's okay. But in slow speeds, it just feels weird to have the slack head angle and the 51 mil offset. Fighting it a little bit. Yeah, this bike doesn't encourage you to shift down to 1 or 2 gears harder and just muscle it out. It's like, we'll get there when we get there. Shift to an easier gear and relax. Whereas that spot, you'd shift 1 or 2 gears harder and just pedal a little more and it was there. It wasn't actually any harder, it was just faster. One thing I'd change is crank length. 175 is too long for a medium in my mind. So when I talk about the ideal crank length, I'm talking about what's the ideal radius you want your feet to travel in a circle when you're pedaling. How big of a circle do you want your feet to be making? It changes how much torque you put down. It changes the feel of the seat angle. It changes how bent your knee is at the top of the pedal stroke. It's so much more than just rock strikes. And I think it's an oversight how we've stick the same size cranks on all size bikes. This is a good bike. This is a good buy. It's a very solid bike. It does a lot of things well, and it's a jack of many trades. To me, this bike is like a Ford F-150. It may not be the sexiest, it may not be the most feature-packed, but it's solid. It's a workhorse, it's reliable, it's well-spec'd. Yes, it's a little heavy, but I will take a little bit heavier to have a great feeling fork. It's got a great drivetrain. The brakes were a major disappointment. Even though they're 4-piston Shimano's, they did not ever feel great. This bike is so close to being really balanced and modern, but that fork offset throws it off. It's like they went 90% of the way right to modernize this, but they didn't quite get the whole package. That said, a lot of people do like longer offset forks. If that's you, you're gonna love this. So let's talk about who this bike is for. This bike is for somebody who wants the steel is real feel, who doesn't want to get beat up, who wants clearance for 29 by 2.6 tires, who wants a tradition and a history and a heritage of a bike that's been made since 1993, 28 years. That's really cool. This would be a great bike for bike packers and somebody who wants something reliable that they can just put a lot of miles on and carry a lot of weight on. This bike is for people who enjoy blue trails and black trails. It's plenty stable, plenty capable for black diamonds and even some double black diamonds. The geometry is perfect on it. Just that fork rake makes it a little bit awkward, but it's got a really great geometry on it. I love the taller stack. It's just a great bike. It's not the world's most exciting bike, but it doesn't let you down. It was a little bit vanilla, but a solid bike all over. The geometry and frame feel really stand out to me, and that's the most important part of any bike, because that's the one thing you can't change. So starting with a frame like this is a great starting place, and then you just upgrade stuff as you want. It's got Shimano SLX 12-speed drivetrain. I don't think you need to upgrade that. Race face cranks are fine. Race face name brand cockpit. It's got great tires. It's got great wheels. The hub doesn't have great engagement, but no bike has a hub with great engagement for under $5,000. And in this day where it's so hard to find hardtails in stock, this is a really safe bet that if you enjoy the type of riding I've described, this would be a great option. I don't think this is the right bike for people looking for a zippy, energetic, exciting seat of the pants ride. The bike just felt a little bit muted and a little bit calm, which is a great feeling as well. You could feel its weight and it felt really planted and didn't want to bounce offline. It's definitely not for people who are racing XC or who are looking for a lightweight bike to do 50, 60 mile days on. But I think bike packing where you're loading it up with 15 to 20 pounds of gear, you're not going to notice the extra couple pounds on this bike anyway. I think this bike totally hit the market that Jameis was going for with not an enduro bike, but not an XC race bike either. It's right in the middle. I feel like on green trails, it's not going to be exciting enough. It's kind of missing some of that pep and excitement that a really great hardtail has, but it's a solid workhorse of a bike. Just looking at it, it felt a little bit budget to me. Just the looks, the gusset, the warning stickers everywhere, just little things like that. The cable routing is just a little bit of a mess. Little things like that. But when you're on the bike riding it, you forget all about that, and it rides far better than I expected it to. I think Jameis did a great job on this. I think it could be even better with a 44 mil offset fork and better brakes. But man, we're getting nitpicky at that point. If you need help deciding your next bike, I offer a bike consultation service through Patreon. It's the way that I support the work that I do here. YouTube does not pay enough for these videos to support my family and buy groceries. So I, on the side, offer bike consultation. If you're looking for a bike or you're trying to decide between 2 or 3 or more bikes, go sign up on Patreon and we can work one-on-one together. I'll ask you a whole bunch of questions. We'll get to know each other better. I'll get to know what you're looking for in a bike, what you're not looking for, what your trails are like, things like that. So then I can make a good recommendation. I consult on both hardtails and full suspensions. I've been super fortunate to be able to ride some of the most modern hardtails in the world, and I have a really good idea of how they compare to each other. So if you need help deciding which ones really stand out, or which bikes are my favorite, or which bikes would be perfect in a certain scenario, the bike consultation service would be perfect for you. If that's not in your budget or not something that you're interested in, continue to enjoy these free reviews. If you enjoy this content and my straightforward approach and no nonsense, no beating around the bush reviews, give this video a thumbs up and put a comment. That helps YouTube suggest it to more people, and it helps my channel grow. It's not to stroke my ego to see how many thumbs up I get. It's literally how YouTube's algorithm decides which videos to recommend to other people. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. I'd love to hear comments. What do you think about this dragon? What would you change? What would you keep? Where would you ride it? You ever had a Jameis in the past, and how did you like it? Thanks for watching. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.